What's up? I'm Derek. This is my channel. Today I am here to talk to you about the biggest setup change you can make yourself sound better on saxophone. The thing that I think you're going to be the happiest with out of this video is I'm not going to tell you to go buy a new $9,000 horn or a $1,000 neck, anything like that. This is going to be ballin' on a budget today. As you progress in your saxophone career, it's extremely easy to fall into the trap of sinking more and more money into your setup, believing that it's going to make you that much better. When, in the end, the smallest thing in your setup is going to make the biggest difference. Today I'm going to be talking to you about reeds, what I use, how I work them, and what I've learned over the years. The most important thing that you can do for your reeds is keeping them safe. They're extremely fragile, so I would recommend one of these, or something like it. This is a reed case. I do know that they come in the styles where the reeds are still kind of exposed, but they're latched onto it. I like these where they actually have the lid that flips open, because if you hit the top of this, it's going to still protect your reeds, whereas the other ones are actually exposed. With reed cases, I really don't recommend anything in particular. I don't think this is an extremely important thing to focus on or spend a whole lot of money on. I'm pretty simple with mine. Again, I just like the cover on mine. This particular one is a ProTech reed case. Whatever works, works, in my opinion here. One of the most important considerations when buying reeds for a beginning saxophonist, and especially for buying for a young musician, is just how responsible they are. From experience, I know that a lot of these sixth graders, the responsibility and ability to take care of things that they own is not quite there yet, and that's totally fine. But it's just something you have to be honest with yourself about before you make these purchases. I say this because the education standard for reeds is Vandoren Blue Box, which are cane organic reeds. These are awesome reeds. I think that for the most part, they're pretty consistent. But the deal with it is it's organic, and it takes a lot of consistent care and attention, and knowing also whenever you need to switch out reeds. And a lot of these kids, they're gonna play these reeds straight into the ground, and they're gonna play them way past the time that they need to be switching them. And it's going to be detrimental to their learning experience because they're not gonna be able to make good sounds on them after a while. For these reasons, I'm going to be taking a little bit of a controversial stance here, I think. I believe that most beginning saxophonists should be playing on something like this. This is what we call a synthetic reed. It is not made with cane, but these are more printed, I believe. This particular one is by Legere. It is their signature series. These got me through the end of high school and all the way through college without basically knowing how to work reeds. They are very plug and play. You just put them on and play, and they sound good. They don't require to be wet. They don't react to humidity. They are even across the board. I will say that some synthetic reeds are kind of hit or miss. Again, I found these to be very consistent, and I would recommend these to pretty much everyone. The caveat to this is that these reeds come in a box of one. They are pretty expensive. You're gonna be paying about the same that you would be paying for a box of whatever, 5 or 10 of the organic ones, but you know that you're going to be getting a good reed. These reeds are slightly more durable than a cane reed. However, the tip is still thin and it could break. It is still fragile. So you still need to teach those kids to take care of their stuff, or if you're an adult, it's always a good time to learn. With all that being said, again, I played on those synthetic reeds throughout college, but after college, I made the switch back to organic. And I will tell you what, if you get a good cane reed, it is going to be the sound of a synthetic reed any day of the week. After some experimentation with my setup, I landed on these bad boys. These are the Boston Sax Shop. It's just the black label. It was their standard cut for a long time. I know they offer a couple different cuts now that I do like, but I still always kind of revolve around these. I find these to be very consistent, even cuts. You're gonna get a couple good reeds out of the box. Again, with cane reeds, you're gonna have some duds in there, but I find that the duds in these are still a lot more eligible for practicing than some of the other brands out there. As we touched on earlier, the big struggle with cane organic reeds is that they do vary reed to reed. As a matter of fact, even within a same box, you could have 10 extremely different reeds, and that could be for many reasons. It could be from the weather that these cane experienced whenever they were growing, to the process that cut them, to maybe you just let it sit in your car too long and the heat got to it, or it dried out too much and now it's warped. All sorts of reasons. Pretty much across the board, no matter what manufacturer you're buying from, even my Boston Sax reeds, you're gonna find just a few that play actually very well. Oftentimes I find one or two that I think are worthy to play just right out of the box. The rest of them are going to feel maybe a little bit too thin. I think oftentimes though, they are mainly too stuffy, or they feel maybe a little too dense or thick for me. And this is where we can get our money back. Take a look at this guy. This right here is the Geeklet. This one is sponsored by BetterSax. It is made by Reed Geek though. They have a couple of different models, but essentially what this is a tool for working your reeds. Pause. I just want to say that for years, for absolute years, I thought that I would not be able to work reeds. I thought it was going to be way too difficult and it wasn't for me. But after playing on cane reeds and having that high of playing on the best cane reed and getting that just sweet, sweet sound and response, I had to figure it out. So if you are thinking at this point that maybe it's too advanced for you, it's actually not. It's pretty simple and it's just a experiment as you go sort of a thing. I promise you won't really ruin reeds with this technique. Before I talk to you about this tool, I did want to say that I have had one problem with it. Everything else is fantastic about this. I've had a slight rusting on the end, and I'm not exactly sure why that is, because I do dry it after every single use, and it's only on the end, it's not on the sides. But that doesn't really matter to me because I actually don't use the end. Before I even use the tool though, my process starts here with a simple glass of water. I find that if I take my reed and go ahead and throw it in the glass of water, and then I get my saxophone set up, the reed is nice and moist by the time that my setup is complete. It doesn't take very long, just a couple minutes. After that, I take it out, dry it off a little bit, and it's ready to be worked. And here is where the tool comes into play. The flat edge of this tool, the sides of it, are where the value is in this product. Take that side edge and scrape it along the back of your reed gently. What this is going to do is this is going to flatten the table so that the reed then suctions to your mouthpiece better. This is important to do every time because this is organic material. As soon as it dries out, it's going to warp ever so slightly, even if you do have it in a reed case. So it's always good to flatten out that table before you play every time. It is going to be extremely hard to remove too much whenever you do this process. I have been doing this for a long time and I have not messed up a single reed by working the back of it like that. I especially like this tool for this process because again, it is flat. It spans the entire length of the reed, so even if you're working it not on a flat surface, it's going to be taking off even amounts from either side of the reed. Unlike something like sandpaper, where it does have that bend to it, it'll only take off where you press down. Now, here is where you can really get yourself in trouble. And this is why I don't use this tool for this part. Working the top of the reed, one way that you can make your reeds better, especially if it is kind of a stuffier reed, you can take off of the wings, the sides of the reed. This is going to make it vibrate a little bit more freely, and you'll find that you get a little bit more flexibility, I guess, out of response, rather, out of your reed. So the creators of this, what they recommend is that you take the end of this tool to the wings of your reed and you scrape using the end of this tool. Now, I find that there's some pretty harsh angles here and there's some pretty hard points that if you catch it in the wrong way or you're pressing too hard, you are actually gonna mess up your reed. I have definitely messed up a reed or two doing that because I end up pressing just a little bit too hard and then it just goes too deep into the tip of the reed. For this reason, I always love the tried and true method of just having a little bit of fine grit sandpaper in your case so that you can work exactly the tips of the reed that need to be worked. This is a more precision tool for me, again, because it's just ever so slight. It does have that flexibility to it, so you know that If you're pressing down, you're gonna be able to feel it with your finger. It's not gonna catch a sharp corner or anything. So whenever I work the top of my reed, I will always use sandpaper because I find that it gets a much more consistent product for me. Now this is such an essential skill to learn because going from 1 to 2 reeds in a box of 10 that are performance worthy, now you're gonna have 5, maybe even 6 reeds that are really performance worthy within a box. And those last 4 to 5 reeds that you have in the box that might not be performance worthy are definitely going to be practice worthy, and you're going to be able to run those during practice, work your skills up, and then hit the stage with those good ones. Like I said, this process, I'm soaking the reed while I'm putting up the saxophone, so there's not really any time lost there. And I work the back of the reed every single time. That just takes maybe a minute or two. Whenever I'm working the wings, the sides of the top of the reed, that is a specific dedicated time. That will be a little bit more time consuming, but that is definitely not something I do every practice session. So this whole process really does not put a huge dent in my overall practice time. It does take up a little bit of time, but that consistency is key to chasing that high of getting that great organic cane reed sound every single time. Now, where you're really gonna reap the rewards of this process is down the line, because if you're practicing and playing on good reeds all the time, your skills are gonna develop that much faster, and also it's gonna be much more enjoyable to play on the saxophone. You're not gonna feel like you're fighting the instrument all the time, and you're actually gonna have a good time playing, chasing that high of playing on a great organic reed all the time. Anyway, guys, that's what I got for you today. Again, I'm Derek. This has been my channel. I hope you have a good time with your reed journey. Definitely experiment. I think it's always worth taking the time to experiment. It might seem like it costs a little bit more upfront to try a couple different reeds, but it's gonna really pay dividends later in your saxophone career. Maybe even sooner in your saxophone career. Maybe you'll land on something right away that's gonna really work for you. But the response and getting that clarity of sound is the most important thing. It's gonna make it much more enjoyable to play, and I wish you the best of luck. As always, happy practicing. I will see you next time. Like and subscribe if you appreciated this video, and have a nice day.